We are actually in week 2 of a new series here at 828 Church, so your timing is awesome, called Stay Close. And I shared last week, there was a moment in my life in mission and ministry, and more importantly, just as a dad and a husband, when we were walking and working with God and felt like God had called us to something that was just beyond us. It was actually our first move to Virginia. And we were coming from Louisiana, and man, I was just, come on, what do you want us to do, Jesus? What's the word of the Lord in regards to this? And just praying about it, and felt like we got our answer, and it was to move and relocate. That was 13 hours away, and it was a pretty significant transition for us. But as we were making preparations for the transition, I felt like the Lord spoke to me and said, just stay close, The key here in this transition is just to stay close to me. Stay close. You've never been this way before. That was literally what I heard. And so I said last week, for years, man, I would tell that story. I was so proud of that story. Like I got this word from God. You know what I'm saying? Stay close. You've never been this way before. And after sharing that story over and over in different preaching opportunities, kind of thing like that, one day I felt like in my own personal quiet time, the Lord said to me, I love how you always share that story, but you do realize that's always true, right? What are we doing right now? And I felt like the Lord said to me, you've always never been this way before. Come on, church family, that's always true for us. We're always on a journey with God to some place in time that we've never been before, some circumstance or situation. Every day's a new day. Come on, that's good news. That's good news. But it's always important and necessary, come on, to stay close. And the point of this whole series is really just to point out the invitation, the path, and the importance of being in God's presence. That's the point of the series. And I believe that God's been taking us to some deeper places as a church family. I do. I don't know if you've been sensing that, but man, even over the summer, as we've been in this house and now pushing into fall, we've been in some sweet places with the Lord, and it's powerful. There's something incredibly powerful. Everybody that knows that's true, give me a little love right now. But man, when you land up in a place where you're like, okay, it's me and God right now, some life transformation starts to happen inside of us, and that's a big deal. I love how David said it in the Psalm when he said, how good it is to be near God. He said, I have literally made the sovereign Lord my shelter. And I'll tell everybody about the wonderful things you do. Sometimes people are like, brother, why are you always talking about Jesus? One of our favorite songs around here is Let Me Tell You About My Jesus. Come on, somebody. If you don't know me, I snap when I think it's good, okay? I think that's good, everybody. Let me tell you about my Jesus. I'm going to tell you something. Time in the presence of God, walking and working with God is transformational. I'm still not who I want to be. I am a work in progress for sure, but I know where the difference gets made, and it gets made when I'm walking with God. Here's the first takeaway for us this morning. We were created to recognize and value the nearness of God. We were created for that. Like we have special receptors and sensors. And we get confused about what those things are telling us sometimes. We live in a world that's really lost and broken. I get it. We're very lost and broken too at times. But what we were created to recognize and value is the nearness of God. And Adam and Eve, man, that was, when God first created them in the garden in the book of Genesis, all right? That's the best named book in the Bible, everybody. Genesis, beginnings. Way to put that in the front. Been weird if that was number 2. It's all right. I thought it was funny. I don't even care if you do or not. Genesis. And in that beginning, the whole point was for God to walk with Adam and Eve in the garden. But disobedience separated them from God. That's a word we use sometimes called sin. Everybody knows the word, and I don't know if we know what it means, but it just literally means disobedience or rebellion against what God wills or wants for us. Sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's not. But it separates us from Him. And it separated them and us from Him right from that beginning. But I got some good news for you. It's only 98 days till Christmas. So there you go. Only 98, everybody. Immanuel, you understand what I'm saying? Immanuel, y'all heard about him, right? Y'all heard about him, right? Immanuel, what a great name. That's better than Genesis right there. Come on. Immanuel, which being interpreted means, come on, that ought to mean something to you right there. Come on, Miss Francis, help me out a little bit. Immanuel, God capital G-O-D. You understand what I'm saying? God. Lord, don't take that for granted. My goodness. God with us. God with us. If you've never worked your way through our devotional, Immanuel, God with us, counting down 100 days till Christmas, we have a few copies still here at 828 Church. I think it started on Friday, would have been day one, I believe. And yes, the 16th, that's correct. Thank you, Carly. I was trying to make sure. You can pick up a copy, or you can download it on iBooks or Kindle or whatever if you haven't been through it. But so thankful that what happened in the garden didn't determine our forever destiny. Yeah. But that God had a plan. He had a plan for that. At Matthew 1:23, look, the virgin will conceive a child. She'll give birth to a son, and they will call him Immanuel, which means God with us. And then, but the truth is, when we think about God being with us, okay, well, sure, if you are a believer, if you're not a believer this morning, man, I'm going to make an effort today to help you understand that there really is a God and that he loves you very much, okay? And I'm keen for a cup of coffee after as well. I'll help you understand why I believe that there is a God. I'll even help you understand why I believe he's the God of the Bible and why he wants to be close to us. I'm keen for that conversation, for sure. But I will say to you that just knowing that God is alive and well, if you will, and understanding that he's around us isn't necessarily the only thing that we need to know in regards to being close to him. That's what I was trying to say in that. Check what David said in the Psalm 139:7. He said, I can never escape from your spirit. I can never get away from your presence. If I go up to the heaven, you're there. If I go down to the grave, you're there. If I ride the wings of the morning, if I dwell in the farthest oceans, even there your hand will guide me and your strength will support me. I could ask the darkness to hide me. Come on, we've tried that too, right? Turn that light off. I don't want God to see me right now. And the light around me to become night, but even in the darkness I cannot hide from you. To you the night skies are as bright as day. Darkness and light are same to you. The truth is, another takeaway for us is this: you can recognize but still not prioritize the presence of God. I'll say it again. You can recognize but still not prioritize the presence of God. And that's where a lot of us live. People who even believe in God, who have a relationship with God. Often we don't prioritize, come on somebody, we don't prioritize his presence. You know that's true because you have relationships with people, and maybe some of you have a husband or a wife, or certainly you grew up in a home with parents or brothers or sisters or somebody at some point, and you know you can live with someone and not really be in their presence. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know people who are roommates but not soulmates. Man, I got married to my girlfriend so we could be soulmates. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I want to live with her, not just in the same house. And times and seasons make the way that looks differently, but we are present together in the same place, not just physically. Do you hear me? You know when you're with someone but they're not there? You know, you'd be like, hey. I mean, that's as much a challenge now as it's ever been because we have so many things that can take our attention. We can be right in front of someone and be doing something else. That didn't used to be true. There wasn't much you could be daydreaming. Look off in the sky, okay? We don't even know what daydreaming is anymore. We mean phone dreaming, or I don't know, we're on the computer, whatever we're doing. But there's so much technology and things that pull us away. Isn't it nice when you get a moment with someone and they're present? Yeah. Hey, this is great. Like, put that down, put that down. Hey, that challenges the best people I know to do that. I know people who are married and live in two different parts of their home. They're roommates. And if you live in that kind of relationship, I'm praying for you. And I'm not encouraging you to quit on that, but I'm just saying there's more. There is more. And there's certainly more regards to our relationship with God. Another takeaway for us, I got a lot today. The key to closeness isn't just knowing he's near, but choosing to be with him since he is. In fact, that's today's big takeaway. Life groups don't start this week, but if they did, that would be the takeaway we would be unpacking right there. That would be the one. Because I think that's it. I mean, that's the synoptic. Some of y'all are like, okay, we got it then. Can you stop preaching? Nope, I'm going to keep going, everybody. I'm going to stay right here for a little bit. I'm going to make this point for at least another 25 minutes. The key to closeness isn't just in knowing he's near, but choosing to be with him since he is. It was Jeremiah who said, if you look for me wholeheartedly, you will find me. I appreciate that from God. He said, I will be found by you. I love that God's not hiding from us. I said this a couple of weeks ago. It's not like God's like, hey, try to find me. Oh, you missed me. He's hiding behind a cloud. Try to find my wheel. Oh, I'm sorry, not right there. Sucker. You know, that's not how he treats us. He wants to be found by us. He wants to make himself available to us. And so I have for us today a list of 5 ways to prioritize his presence. And this is kind of the meat of this morning's message. 5 ways to prioritize his presence. Number 1, choose his presence over other priorities. I know I've already preached that. I understand that was sort of what the intro lived like just now. But I'm going to say it again anyway because it's so critically important. The truth is, if everything is a high priority, nothing is a high priority. I think that's a little bit of the challenge for us. And we need to choose Jesus as our top priority. Like his presence, our relationship with him, that's numero uno. That's been a preaching point for several weeks, even months. I know I joked with you guys. We have a bunch of guys that watch from Livingston, Zambia. Not South Africa, Livingston, Zambia. And we saw them back in July. And one of them walked out of the curio stand and said, put God first. That was his first thing. Like, what would it be like if we put God first? Because that was one of our messages in the What If series. It's such a big deal. Psalm 27:4. One thing I have asked of the Lord that I will seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple. David wasn't saying he wanted to live in a building. That wasn't what he was saying. He was saying, my number 1 priority, my chief prayer, is that I get to be with God. It is the Matthew 6:33 passage from the What If series. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness and all these other things. It's not that the other things don't matter. It's not even that the other things aren't a priority. My gracious, my marriage, my family, my friendships, those are high priorities, very high priorities. But there's one highest priority, just one. And when that priority is the highest priority, all the other priorities can work out for me. And they don't when I don't, or when he isn't, right? Our first choice is to choose God first. So how do we do that? Well, go back and listen to that message in the What If series. The teaching will be a bit deeper in that, but I'll just give you a few quick reminders. Take time for him. I mean, you know, what you do speaks louder than what you say. A whole lot of us would say, what's your top priority, God? Okay, well, you know how you spend your time, how you spend your money, how you use your talent, how your life currency is allocated says a lot about who's. And in regards to his presence, take time. And you got to take it, people. Y'all with me this morning? What I mean by that, I mean you can't make time. Some folks say, well, I'm going to make some time for God. From what? We all have the same number of hours every day. You can't make time. You got to take it. There's no making time. I'm glad, too. I would die of exhaustion by the end of the week if I could make some time. Because I'd make time for other things, and then I would die. I'd be so wore out. I don't need any extra hours, Lord Jesus. I just want to do better with the ones I have. Are we together on it? And get rid of idols, because they are time thieves. You know, there's some idols. Come on, there's some idols in our lives. There's some things that, boy, they become so big to us, so important to us. And you can fill in the blank about what those are for you. It can be good things. Good things that became the most important thing that weren't God are idols. All right? Just get the order right? Learn to say no. And that's not even so much saying no to everybody likes that. Yeah, I'm learning to say no, hallelujah. Yeah, because you don't want to do anything. Okay, that's fine, whatever. You bragging on that, that's great. Hallelujah. There's probably some stuff you need to say no to. I'm not talking about that, though. That's probably true. I'm talking about learning to say no to you. Learn to say no to you. And the stuff your flesh wants when it don't need it. All right? Ooh, that's hard. I just glanced at the health coach. I felt convicted. Man, I get so much conviction on this stage. I have no idea. You got to learn to say no so you can say yes. Right? No to what we sometimes want or would rather do, and yes to God. And choosing obedience over convenience is one of the ways we put God first. It's a big deal. I'll say this too, and just in this regard, and then I'll move on. But it's a big deal who you hang out with. That's why this is so important. Like, who you hang out with is such a big deal. Parenting tip. I'll give you a little pro tip here for parenting. Your kids' friends are a big deal. And sometimes, maybe our kids are not a good friend for someone else's kids. That goes both ways, all right? I'm on top of that right there. But I'm just saying, it is such a critical thing who is influencing your people. And if you're a parent who is paying attention and engaged, you understand that. It's so critical. Well, that's true for us too. That's true for us too. Who's your best friend, Jesus? Who's your best friend? Come on, somebody. Listen. Who you spend time with is transformational. Here's another takeaway for us, and then I'll move to this next point, which this will flow into. But until who he is transforms who you are, you've missed on the impact of his presence. Leave that up for a quick second. Incidentally, every week, all of the takeaways, all the things on the screens, you can find those on the app. They go with the podcast that gets posted every week. So if you ever miss one of those, sometimes you guys are like, I'm trying to take a picture of that. Screens team's awesome. They bounce because I went to the next point, and they're trying to keep up with me. So I have to stop and do some of this wordy palaver so you have time to take a picture. All right, but how important is this? Until who he is transforms who you are, you've missed on the impact of his presence. You feel like you're spending time with God, but I'm telling you, you hang out with Jesus, he will change who you are from the inside out. A second way to prioritize his presence then is to listen for his voice and come when he calls. That's a big deal too. God's always calling us aside, sometimes just to show us something for a second, Hey, if you're around little people, you understand this, because they'll be like, hey. Right now for me it would be, hey, Papa. Hey, Papa. And then, they want to show you something. They want you to see something. And God does that too, only he's, in this relationship, he's not the grandkid. You understand what I'm saying? Like, he's the oversight. He's the one that brings the life. And he'll say, hey, Ron, come here, I want to show you something. Or, hey, come spend some time with me. And often that's not, I don't move physically. I stay right where I am. This is just him wanting my ear for a minute. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it often is when someone else is talking. That God's showing me something. So it doesn't require silence always. Doesn't always, hear what I said, always. Doesn't always require separation. Sometimes God's showing me something in a group of people. I just want to be attentive to his voice and come when he calls. The story of Samuel. Samuel's mother was desperate for a child and promised God if he would give her one that she would give that child back to God. She took him to the temple and gave him to the priest. And in the most positive way, obviously she still had a relationship, but he was being raised in the service of the Lord. And when he was there, he was sleeping and he heard his voice called, Samuel, Samuel. And he jumped up and ran to the priest Eli and he said, hey, did you call me? And he said, well, I didn't call you. He still didn't have a clue at that point, or he didn't have a clue at that point what was going on. Samuel went back. He said, go lay back down. You're waking me up. He went and laid back down. He heard it again. Samuel, Samuel. He jumped up and ran in there again. Hey, you call me? I'm sure he was respectful, but he probably wanted to say, are you losing your mind because you keep yelling my name and acting like you didn't? Which sounds like something I would do. And then the third time, the word says, in verse 8 of chapter 3 of the book of Samuel, and the Lord called Samuel again the third time, and he arose and went to Eli and said, here I am, for you called me. Then Eli, a little slow to the uptake here, perceived that the Lord was calling the boy. Therefore Eli said to Samuel, go lie down, and if he calls you, you shall say, speak, Lord, for your servant hears. So Samuel went and lay down in his place. And the Lord did call. He did call. And Samuel had one of the most amazing relationships with God ever recorded in the Word. Another takeaway for us. Practically, you are only truly present when you stop and stay to listen. We got all these ideas about what it looks like to be in the presence of God, and sometimes it looks super spiritual. And man, that's okay. I'm not dissing on that. But I'm saying you're only present in his presence when you stop and stay to listen. Practically. In fact, that's the key, isn't it? To learn to be present in his presence. Not dissimilar from that first point, or even also back to that introduction. I told you I was going to be working to make the same point over and over. But being present. in his presence. You know, because even for those of you, this does not describe many of you, but for those of you who have a long history of quiet times and things like that, it can become such a habit that you miss the holy. Right? That you miss the power of the moment. Some of you who are new to this and you're just finding your way, you're actually a little better at being engaged and engaging in those times with God because it hasn't become old hat to you yet. Come on, praise the Lord. Let's all stay fresh. You know what I'm saying? Let's be present. Let's be present in his presence. Because, I mean, and again, I already sort of made this point, but there are all sorts of things you could think about right now, times when you're with someone, but you're not listening. And so listening to God, prioritizing his voice, not just hearing, but also listening. I've had conversations with people who were not distracted at all, but the mind was pre-made, right? We're having a conversation about a decision. And I said to a close friend of mine once, I said, look, you're great. You will sit and hear from anyone. Everyone can have a space to talk to you, but I feel like you don't listen to anyone. There's a difference in that regard. I'm not saying don't hear the words, aren't processing the thoughts, but I'm saying also giving space for that voice to have an impact. Do you understand what I'm saying right now? Like, that's also critically important. A couple of days ago, I had breakfast with Tex. Tex is at South today. Tex is on our lead team. You guys that are part of our church family know who that is. And I meet with Tex regularly. I share this with you often. He's 71, and he will speak truth to me, sometimes even when I don't want him to. And I was meeting with him, and I asked him what the word of the Lord was. If you hang out with me much, you know that's probably a question you might get asked. What's the word of the Lord? And he said, well, the Lord really has been dealing with me lately about the fact that we often call him Lord, and we still don't do what he says. That's in the Bible. Jesus asked the question, why do you call me Lord, Lord? You don't do what I say. That's pretty, I think the Lord feels like that's almost an insult. Why are you calling me Lord? You say, I'll do whatever that's essentially what we're saying when we say Lord. I'll do whatever you say, but you don't. But often the reason we don't, I left from that feeling convicted. I was thinking, okay, let me process that right quick. And I was thinking, what are the things that keep us from doing what he says? So it's a couple of things. It would be one, that we didn't even hear him. Like, he was speaking and we just weren't listening at all. But then there's the other part of listening, that is obeying, right? It is processing what has been said and applying it to who we are, which is something we should always do in regards to God. Think about the Apostle Paul, previously known as Saul. He was persecuting Christians, and he was on the road to Damascus to arrest Christians, have them arrested and thrown in jail. And this was a dude that, he was a Pharisee amongst Pharisees. He had studied at the feet of Gamaliel. Honestly, he had a big heart for religion, but he had missed on the relationship. Okay, religion isn't in of itself bad, but without relationship, it's terrible. And so that was kind of where he had lived. But he knew all the verses. He knew that verse from Psalm 139, I am sure, about how there's nowhere you can go to get away from God. And yet he's on his way to arrest people who are telling people about the Messiah he's been talking about was one day going to come. He ain't been listening. Are y'all following me right now? Yeah. Everybody drop those rocks, right? Because we do it too. We got preformed opinions that we need to lay down in the presence of God so he can actually speak to us. And then God gave Saul, soon to be known as Paul, some extra love and threw a big light on him. And he said, man, why are you giving me so much grief? And Saul, soon to be known as Paul, said, oof. He didn't actually say this, but he said this, sorry about that. And then he said, what would you have me do? What do you want me to do? What's my right response to this? And from then on, it will be easy to make the argument that nobody listened better than Paul. Come on, it's not too late. It's not too late to learn to listen. Dude wrote 2/3 of the New Testament. He was listening. He was doing whatever it was that God wanted him to do, and seemed happy to do it. For us, selective hearing is a big issue. It is. Selective hearing is a big issue for the God follower. Here's the approach we ought to take. Come when he calls, quickly and always. A takeaway for us, segueing to my third point. Selective hearing is good, though, if the voice you choose to hear is his. Yeah. If the voice you choose to hear is him, then that's good. Because there's a lot of noise. Everybody. There's a lot of noise in the world. There's a lot of things that's vying for our ear time. So it is important to have some selective hearing. It's just important to select his voice. Number 3, ways to prioritize his presence. Come clean and come in. Yeah, I mean, we all got stuff, right? You think about, coming into the presence of God. If we're really talking about the throne room here. Man, you think Old Testament, we're talking about the Holy of Holies, the place where the presence of God is. I mean, I don't want to come, we're infamous for trying to clean ourselves up before we come, right? We don't need to clean ourselves up. We just need to come clean. What does that mean? That means just be honest about where we are. That's all that means. Just come, don't mean get clean, it means come clean, and he'll make you clean. You know what I'm saying? Like, just be honest about it. We say this consistently here, but the worst kind of sin for sure is the kind we try to justify. Listen, being broken, having struggles, that's everybody. Stand in a long line. If that's you, that's all of us. Every one of us. Every one of us. Every one of us. Trying to make a point. Right? But where we've gotten in trouble, and this has become societal norm, and unfortunately in a lot of ways even in the church, is now we're in the business of justifying. Oh, it's not bad. I mean, other people do it. I mean, it's not bad, right? I mean, and the Bible probably didn't really mean that, or only part of it's true. Oof. If you were here a few weeks ago for what if we believed and told the truth, I'm still sweating a little bit over that message, to be honest with you. But it's life. There's life in believing in truth. And the truth is, it's quite common to struggle. Absolutely normal. But there's no reason for us to stay broken and bound. Not when we have such a great Messiah, liberator, redeemer. No reason to stay. And don't justify. Don't say, well, it's okay. It's probably not wrong anyway. Don't justify. And if you want to come into God's presence, justification will keep you out. So it's like the worst kind of sin of all. Justifying our brokenness is one of the worst sorts of rebellion. Oof, that's punchy. I should have made a takeaway out of that. Don't let hurt or fail you keep you from coming to him. So how do we say it here? Somebody try to get ahead of I'm not that complicated. Somebody should get ahead right here. What am I about to say? So when you mess up, how should you respond in regards to God? Oh, I messed up. What should I do? If you mess up, fess up, get up, and go to God. David said it on the front row, though. Run to, not from. You're going to run, right? When you mess up. Come on, everybody. I like to tell the story about Jacob when he was a little dude. I haven't told it in a year, so I'm going to bring it back right quick. But when we did live in Virginia, and I had this jacked and stacked 4x4, just like a short wheelbase Dodge pick-em-up truck, and we used to love to take it up in the mountains and stuff. And I was having I think we were changing the brakes on the front of my truck, and I had a big, what they call a handyman jack, everybody. It's huge. It will kill you. It's a really big, heavy jack. They're great for picking stuff up, but they're actually pretty unsafe. They don't attach to the vehicle that well. But anyway, and they have this huge pipe handle. I mean, like a real pipe that you could slug something with, you know what I'm saying? Don't. And you got to pull. I mean, and Jacob is one of the most helpful humans to this day on the planet. He and Isaac both have always had a big heart to help me work on vehicles or whatever. And he was out there working, and we had it jacked up and got all the work done. Now we're jacking it down, which is even almost a little bit trickier. And so he's like, I can do it, Dad. And I was about to go around and help him, but he's pulling on that handle, and just as the pressure breaks off, it slips out of his hands. And the handle I hadn't put the clip in, which was bad on me, and the handle flew out, and it just goes, whoo, 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 stuck straight through my windshield. Just, you know what I'm talking about, Chad? Right through the windshield. And I looked, like I came out from beside the tire, and I looked at the handle, and I haven't even had an opportunity to look at him. Like, I've not made eye contact with him. He is running fast as he can, like, ah! He's already crying. He's running straight through the back door of our house, like, ah! I jumped and I caught him just as he was trying to open the door. He probably thinks I'm going to kill him. I don't know what he thought. I've never tried to kill the kid ever in his whole life. But he clearly thought he was in big trouble. And I grabbed him. And I said, whoa, 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 buddy. Hey, ho, 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 ho. You're okay. You're okay. It's not your fault. And even if it was, it's just a truck. It's okay. I'm just glad it didn't render you unconscious. Incidentally, that same handle had once rendered me unconscious. That's a true story. I was deep stuck out mudding, and I was pulling on that handle, and it slipped out of my hand, hit me right there, and then I woke up a little bit later going, what am I doing? That's your pastor, everybody, right there. Ooh. I said, buddy, even if it had been your fault, it's okay. You're way more important to me than this truck. Come on, somebody. Quit running from God. Quit running. You got brokenness. You got struggles. Yeah, so does everybody else. Now come clean and come in. God, this is what I'm struggling with. Don't try to get it right before you come. Just come. Just come. I say it again. Listen, I know that sin separated us from God, but Immanuel did come. He came and he bridged that gap so we could come into the presence. We could come in to the presence of God. True repentance is always a pathway to deeper relationship with God. Just do this. Whew, I got to turn around. I'm going to go this way. Don't walk away from God. Don't keep going in the wrong direction. Come even as you are. Come even as you are. But come, Hebrews 4:14 says it this way. Now that we know we have Jesus, this great high priest, with ready access to God, let's not let it slip through our fingers. Sorry. We don't have a priest who is out of touch with our reality. He's been through weakness and testing, experienced it all but the sin. So let's walk right up to him and get what he is so ready to give. Take the mercy and accept the help. The fourth way to prioritize his presence is this: come humbly. Now that is critical. That's critically important, to come humbly. Like, come on ahead, y'all. Come on ahead. Come into his presence. You're welcome in the throne room. But come humbly. I know what some of you are thinking. Wait. No, the word says come boldly. That does say that. Ephesians 3:12, because of Christ and our faith in him, we can now come boldly and confidently into God's presence. There's a big difference between boldly and proudly. Just give you a little heads up. You got to know that's true. In fact, I submit to you that people who are proud are usually pretty fearful, if we're honest. I mean, but when we come boldly, it's because we know who this is on. It's not on me, it's on him. As in, don't come in like you've got it all figured out. James 4:6 says, he gives grace generously, as the scripture says. God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Oof. I mean, that verse, though, right? He opposes the proud. He's not really a big fan. That's not what it says. He opposes the proud. I believe that spiritual pride is a massive issue in Christendom and has been probably forever. I mean, certainly in Christ's day it was a big problem. It's just a big, big problem. In fact, I submit to you that some of the Pharisees were good people. They were trying hard to do the right thing. They were good people. But pride kept them from recognizing God's presence, and they completely missed on God's purpose. Why? How did that happen? They knew the word, Dondi. Pride. Got it all figured out before they ever came. It's a problem, and it's a problem for us too. There's some pride warning signs, I think. I think one, like when you sit with someone, there's a lot of opinions. You got an opinion about everything? That's a pride warning sign, like a red flag. I know enough about everything to have a strong opinion. That's a red flag. Or doesn't receive instruction well. Like someone that maybe does know more is trying to give you some instruction or some help. That's probably a warning sign. Or struggles to follow. Always got to go get our own perspective, even when leadership or authority in our lives is kind of giving us some direction. Come on. Or struggles to receive correction. Receive correction. Those are warning signs. I mean, how you doing, everybody? How's your heart? You know? Man, I want to stay humble. I want to come into God's presence. I want God to put people in my life that can speak into my life. I don't want to be offended and offensive, right? Humility, even if someone's not right, it's not that big a deal to you. you're not that messed up about you anyway. It comes from a place of security in Jesus. So it's ironic that when we come humbly, we find a place in his presence that actually makes us secure enough for us to be humble. Y'all help me out just a little bit. Pride can cause you to miss God's presence and misinterpret his priorities. Be careful. Pride does that. And then lastly, how to prioritize his presence. Worship your way in. I've had a lot of different seasons in my life, and they tend to come back around. Like I'll be in this place, and then there have been times when, man, everything made me cry. I'm not too far from that place now. Sorry, everybody. Y'all get teary-eyed preacher a lot around here. I'm soft, and I want to stay soft. There have been other times, though, when I couldn't cry. I was really concerned. Like, what is going on? What's getting hard inside of me? I felt like I was being hardened. I'm not saying you have to be a crybaby, but I'm just saying, man, when Jesus touches you from the inside out, it usually squeezes your heart and makes your eyes leak. And if something happens, he can do that, And I've been concerned at times, and there have been times when I just felt far from God, even though I'm convinced and I know, Chris, that he's right here. He's never far from us. He's never far. But there have been times when it felt like he might as well have been in another universe. You know what always gets me there? Worship. Not just worship music, but that carries me a long ways. I'm a music guy. I tell you guys all the time. Last week we talked about rhythms, and I told you one of my rhythms is jamming with Jesus. I apologize. For those of you who weren't in the house last week, let's allow me to be redundant for those of you who are, but I said sometimes the music's probably a little louder in here than it needs to be. This team's great, but your pastor listens to loud music all the time. So I'm not the guy back there saying, hey, that was a little hot this morning. That doesn't happen very often. I love jamming with Jesus. I love to be in a place. I worship my way in. You can too. You don't have to be a gregarious, overt worshiper. There's no new dignified here at 828 Church. Just because you don't get happy in the Lord doesn't mean you're not happy. But I know some people who would testify, you ought to give it a try. You ought to just give it a little try. See what it's like when you shout him out and give him glory. See how far the devil has to run away from you. He can't handle it. You think he's been harassing you? Worship. Do you hear what I'm saying, church family? I'm telling you, we win through worship. This is it right here. Worship your way in. You tell God how God he is and how good he is, and your fear and your failure has to get out of the way, and you can come in. Watch your heart start to be strong and believe in who God is and who God says you are. Worship your way in. I'm telling you. I mean, you don't have to do it. You can go to heaven as a stoic. There's no rule against it. It's just the journey won't be as joyful till you get there. Again, it's not just externals. By any stretch of the imagination, some people are externally worshiping and far from God in their heart. This is something that's in here. I get that and I believe that. But whatever that looks like, worship. Enter his gates with thanksgiving, go into his courts with praise, give thanks to him and praise his name. James 4:6, draw near to God and he will draw near to you. Bottom line, there's not a more important priority than choosing to be present in God's presence. And making that a priority should be your top priority. The worship team is going to join David and I on the stage. And, you know, that was a big priority in the Old Testament too, incidentally. To be in God's presence. So in the Old Testament, before Jesus came, before Immanuel came, and bridge that gap that was created in the Garden of Eden when sin entered the picture, you know what I'm saying? Before that, they had a tabernacle, a temple. And there was an outer court, and that's where the common people had to stay. And only the priestly order was able to come into the holy place. And even they weren't allowed to go into the most holy place, otherwise known as the Holy of Holies. The priests could go into the holy place. They would enter from a gate that was on the east where the sun came up. And they would come in and they would make a sacrifice on their way in. There was an altar in the outer court. So they would make a sacrifice. I think for us that's a sacrifice of praise. And they would make a sacrifice and they would come in. But only once a year did anybody get to go into the throne room, the place where they kept the Ark of the Covenant, and that was the high priest. I told you last week he had to wear a rope with bells, because if he had sin in his life and that bell stopped ringing, they had to pull him back out. And then nobody want to be his replacement. You understand what I'm saying? Boy, you be praying and praying and praying about it. That most holy place, between the Holy of Holies and the most holy place, where only the high priest could go in once a year, was a veil. It was massive, this massive curtain. Presumably something like 30 feet wide by 30 feet high, and I would assume it had to be pretty thick. The Bible doesn't specify the thickness, but I would assume it had to be pretty thick. And that was what kept even those priests from the holy place of being able to see into the most holy place where the presence of God, the manifest presence of God, resided. The common people could only enter the outer court. And then Jesus came. Whew, come on, somebody. Woo, come on, somebody. Get a little bit happy right quick. Then Jesus came. We were out there. We were the commoners that couldn't come in. We were standing out here, and then Jesus came. Do you understand what I'm saying right now? Then Jesus came. And the word says on the day of his crucifixion, at the moment that he died, that veil was torn from the top to the bottom. And now all of us can come in. We're about to lean into a song called The Throne Room. And you come as close as you want. And I pray that you will. I'll read you this week's poem. So for those of you who haven't been with me in a minute, this year God's had me write a poem every week. So I don't know, the church family may be getting tired of it, but you have to endure for a few more weeks. We're not finished with this assignment yet. Today's poem is simply called or titled Closer, to be present in his presence, to know that he is near, not just all around us, but up close, in person, here. Don't miss him for a moment. Don't let a second slip away. His priceless presence is a treasure. So choose to choose him every day. Bring both the good and bad. It's all welcome at the throne, no matter what you might encounter. It doesn't have to be alone. The veil of separation no longer stands to block the way. Jesus tore it top to bottom so you could come and you could stay. Don't let any fear of failure keep you far away from him. The outer court is not your limit. You're meant for closer. So come in to the place. Once saved for saints, now there's room for sinners too. It's a throne room full of grace. Just come humbly when you do. You'll never leave the same after time you spend up close in the presence of the King with the one who loves you most.